G'day and welcome to another edition of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Wally, joined as always by my good mate, Harro. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, Wally, but I am tipping I am not as good as you. You must still be on a high after the weekend. Why don't you tell everyone what you got up to, mate?
I actually was gonna sidestep this, but now that you've introed it, I will say it. No, Harro, I was lucky enough, and I think we spoke about this last week, to go and take part in the Div 12 Resi State of Origin match at Norwood in South Australia, Vix VSA, essentially just trying to raise money for local footy clubs in SA. They have a number of ex-players, some content creators, and then just some other people like me that sort of make their way there. Who knows how I get a gig? But the idea then is they have some local players coming from various clubs, and then the money goes back to those clubs as well. So it's all about grassroots footy, and it's a good initiative. But it was a pretty good game because I actually managed to snag a few, Harro. They're all cheapies, but lived every kid's dream where I kicked the goal after the siren to win the game for the Vix. The only thing being that siren probably should have gone 10 seconds before, Harro. So we can't let the truth get in the way of a moment like that. But controversial scenes. Someone goes, "Is it siren gate?" I said, "There's no siren gate about it. Siren should have blown." The siren, I think, went. The umpires didn't hear it. It was play on until the umpires obviously call it. So Norwood need a louder siren. Bailey McCabe, my man, Bales kicked it over to me, marked at the top of the square, turned around, bang, goal. Good experience, though, because my son Jack was there. So all he'll remember is Dad kicked some goals and a winner for the Vix and that. But, yeah, wore the number 19 too. So I don't know how proud the Chief would have been of the goals I kicked, Harro, but it was good, and it was good celebrations and whatnot afterwards. So a lot of fun. I actually I played a bit of my time on Mark Cosgrove, cricketer Mark Cosgrove. So we had a good chat. We were both happy, just taking our time, avoiding the ball a little bit and having a breather. So we were cut from the same cloth, me and Cosy. So, but it was very good experience, and even took a. Lined up in one centre bounce attendance with Andrew McLeod, which was pretty cool.
Unbelievable.
So overall, very good weekend, Harro. How was yours, mate? Talk to us about the highlights and lowlights. You tell us how
just quickly, that was much more modest than when you gave me a call on Sunday and explained what had happened. It was it was a bit of a different story. Anyway, it's great to hear, mate. And no doubt you had a good time, so well done, mate. Highlights and lowlights from the punt on the weekend, mate. So the best bet being the D's. Obviously, that got up. They won by 8 points in the end, and so very pleased with that, mate. Also, it was interesting listening to Fly's press conference after, and he seemed to think that that the Pies cost themselves by not being able to just finish at the end. And I'm like, did he not watch Cozzy just completely butcher about 3 opportunities that could have sealed the game for the D's at the end there? So I thought that was odd coming from Fly, but obviously, he's got a different view on it. So I thought the D's were too good, and so we were vindicated with our selection there, which was nice. Yep. The Dogs versus Hawks game, mate, was a really nice fill-up for the disposals, and we put up a multi on X, which was paying $5.50, which won for the punters. And got to give Champion Data credit here, Wally. They had Bont on 23. We needed him to get 24, and they did do the late adjustment for us. And
yes,
I think that the punters on X and whatnot were very happy with that. We had the over total points in the Freo versus North. That was one of the stronger bets for the round, and that covered easily. Wally, this one just keeps on paying, doesn't it? The under total points in the Port versus West Coast game. Yep. And that is now 11-1 on the under for the season. Incredible. And actually it was, the total points markets were hitting pretty sweet at the moment. There was also the Swans and the Saints over, which covered very comfortably too. So that was the best of the highlights, mate.
No worries, mate. Where there's good, there's often bad. What did we miss?
Yeah, so we had the Hawks who needed to win by 2 goals at the line, and they failed to cover. They also failed to win, and despite having 9 extra scoring shots, you don't see that too often, Wally. So maybe a little bit stiff there. We also had the Blues at the line against the Dons, and the Dons decided to probably play their best game for the year on the weekend, or maybe apart from that Melbourne win they had earlier in the year. We had a few little stiff ones, and as well with the disposal bets, with guys missing by one. And one of them was Bowie in the Melbourne game against Collingwood. And I think half of the punting world on X was on him. And he got 19. We needed him to get 20. He also failed to play on from a kick out near the end there as well. So that was a very
there's
stiff
no
one for
excuse
the
for that.
punters.
Play on from the kick out, take the extra step. There's no excuse. There's no excuse.
Too unselfish, Wally. Too unselfish.
Yeah. I'm
Like
not.
yourself, mate.
I'm not here for it. Not here for that. Yeah. All right. So just before we get into the selection table, just to shout out to the Discord. It's pinned to the top of our top of our Twitter, which tells you what you get, and then there's a comment on there of how to join, because sometimes there can be a little confusion because you need to go through Patreon. There's a link there to do it, but you need a Discord account to be able to log in. Then you link them. Once it's set up, it's very, very easy. You're in there. My recommendation is setting up through the desktop or your browser on your phone. I think it's still a little bit better than the app. But once you get in, get your Discord app going. Harro's in there. He's put a heap of stuff in there. He's been going really well. And I tell you what, Harro, on the selection table this week, that's what we're starting with. The Discord is our first in. And the reason I've done this is I love the start that the community's getting around it. It's not just about the launch. There's plenty of people in there. They're interacting with you. You've been really present in there and making sure that there's heaps of information. But the thing I love about this Discord is that you've gone above and beyond. So everything in the Discord is new. So our punters that aren't in the Discord are still getting the podcast free of charge. That still comes to them. There was information on X. There was same game multis on X. So you're getting an elevated level of content, and then you even shared some of that. So, there's some extra bets that we might like. There's some extra information. I think that the Friday morning post Thursday night game pod, which is a nice 10 to 15 minute, and we just go through, just to confirm here, we go through each team post selections and just if there's any different thinking or any new angles that we like. And I think that's really valuable. So big in is the Discord and our community and the way Harro's just getting in there and giving people a heap of information. That's our first in, Harro. So well done, mate. Great start. Off to an absolute flyer.
Yeah, mate. It's been good fun so far. So looking to grow that and keep building the community. I've loved some of the bets that are being shared by other people in the Discord as well. And also just like the little bits of information we're picking up from people being at the ground, saying where people are warming up and sharing some bets in there. It's good fun, mate. Hopefully, we can keep it going.
Yeah, that's for me. I think I said that to you 100 times before we're doing this. Go, how good will it be when the community are at different games of footy going, this bloke's warming up with the defenders, this guy's warming up the mids, things that you and I have phone calls about often when I'm at the game. Like these sort of things are just invaluable. So it's great. All right, a couple more ins. Close games. They're in, Harro, 6 of 8 games, single digit result, most closest round, however you want to call it, in VFL, AFL history, and some cracking games in there too. So that was an interesting one. I don't expect that trend just continues, but it was a good round for that reason. Not all the results ideal, but that's okay. And then the last one for me was the big freeze on Monday. The Monday match there, absolutely just a great way to celebrate an amazing man in Neil Danaher. I thought it was fantastic. And I watched the big freeze with Jack. He loves it. He's like, I take or leave the actual slide stuff, but he's big on it. And he made me go outside and he got in a full Steph Curry kit and got all the props and that, and tip a big tub of ice cold water over his head so he could be a part of it. So he goes, "Oh, I should do it." I'm like, "Mate, you don't. Like, I'm not on board for this at all. It's cold. Like, you don't need to be doing this." Anyway, he did it. But shout out to Goz, Daisy, and Nathan Jones. I think they led the way. The ex-AFL players definitely led the way in the costume get up. They were all elite. Daisy, if you haven't seen it, as Mick Malthouse, and then brought Nick Maxwell as well, holding the cup, is just elite. And Goz's half and half player coach of Josh Fraser with the dedication of shaving half his head was pretty good. Anyway, they were the ins. Where there's ins, there's outs, Harro. Because you got to make way. Outs, halftime interviews. A halftime interview's out now. Paul kicking a goal. I'm obviously talking about Friday night, Harro. But jokes aside, I think that I love the showmanship. I love all the, talk the talk, walk the walk, all of that. But the out for me that came on Friday, and we see this a little bit, but I really was highlighted Friday night, is senior players taking the bait and losing their heads, especially in top teams. Like, we can't be doing that if we're premiership contenders. That's why you got to be looking at that. So whether that's Sicily at Hawthorn, I mean, you don't see it with a Bont. Do you know what I mean? You don't see it with an Isaac Heaney. Like, your senior players need to be able to keep a level head and not take the bait, because what's going to happen, Harro, is everyone's going to look at that and go, okay, that's the blueprint. So with Hawthorn, you shut down whoever is playing that forward role, which means you don't let the ball get in there quick. You don't so whether it's Gunston or Hardwick, you shut that down. And the other thing is you just get in their heads. And so for me, Friday night was a little bit worrying. I'm going after 3 teams here, Harro, because I think there was a few standouts. Next one, the Kangaroos. You cannot be selling games to WA and then roll over there playing the top of the table team that's just traveled down the road and you've flown halfway across the country and show nothing. You just can't do it. Do you know why? Because your fans deserve better. I couldn't give a shit about the team or the players or Clark or anything like that. Their fans have been through hell for years. And I'll tell you what, Harro, they're not huge in number, but geez, they're passionate. And I know a number of North fans that are so passionate, and they actually deserve better than what this club serves up to them. Although it was pathetic on the weekend. There's no excuse for it. There is no excuse for that. I'm not saying you're meant to go and beat them, but they're not that much better than you. There should not be a gap in the AFL that is that big in terms of points. So I reckon the Roos fans deserve better. And the last one for me, Harrow, is Gold Coast, because I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I just can't work this. They are stacked with talent. I don't know a team that has more end-to-end talent than they have. They have key forwards. They've got small forwards who are guns, an incredible midfield, a good back line, great ball users out of the back half, and a triple premiership coach who is still very much in his prime. Like, we're not talking about like over the hills. No, they are set up for success. And everyone's like, oh, they'll come good. Harrow, this is worrying. After the Geelong game in opening round that they won, this is what they've done. They've gone on and beaten West Coast, Richmond, Essendon, GWS, St Kilda at home, Port home. They've lost to Melbourne, Sydney, Hawthorn, a couple of those comfortably, North and Brisbane. So the win-loss ledger is one thing. Who they've lost to and who they've beaten is another. Because if you've already played West Coast, Richmond, Essendon, North Melbourne, like it's not like you've got this charmed run coming. So I don't know, mate. For me, they've got to correct that quickly, because you can't be playing like this and then challenging. I thought you and I would talk about this. I thought they'd turn a corner. I thought they were going to be a genuine contender this year. And after opening round, I thought, oh, we're on here. But no, off a cliff.
They are actually premiership favourites at one point. Can you believe that?
Yep. And I understand why. Like, Petrarca played one of the best games he's ever played in opening round, and they smashed Geelong. So it's like, well, hang on. What else do we need? We've seen how it all works. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, Harrow. Anyway, that's enough ranting for me. We're going to get into the fixtures, Harrow. So, just a reminder before we do as well, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not subscribing, please subscribe. It all helps. Share it, comment, get around it. Yeah, please do, punters. And if you're not following us on both Instagram and X, make sure you are, because there'll be different information coming on Insta soon. I know we use X a lot. Don't worry. We still put everything on there to make sure, but we're going to bring some more content to Instagram soon. So make sure you're following that as well. All right, Harro. Let's get into the footy. As always, prices are best available as of time of recording on a Wednesday morning for head-to-heads, thanks to Bet Sniper, and the lines are based off who we do our SGMs off. So this week we've got Sportsbet lines, again, correct as of Wednesday morning. So Western Bulldogs v Adelaide. Western Bulldogs are $1.78. Adelaide $2.10. The line's 3.5. They're both coming off great wins. I think that this was at Adelaide Oval to be flipped, maybe even more so in their favour. But obviously, Doggies have got a home game here Thursday night. Good way to kick off the round, Harro.
Yeah, mate. No, looking forward to this one. And there's a few factors at play here, which I want to go through. So, first of all, this is the second time these teams have met this season. In round 2, the Doggies got the points, but I sensed that the Dogs were going a lot better at that point of the year than what they are now, and also that the Doggies aren't going as well as what they were going earlier in the year, and the Crows are actually going much better now than what they were going at that point in time, and it was only a small margin. So I kind of feel like that's likely to flip here. The Crows, look, they did win at Marvel last year as well, so they've shown that they can beat the Dogs at Marvel, which is often a challenge for teams. I think that the team changes are likely to suit Adelaide here. They'll definitely get Thilthorpe back, and they may even get Rankin back as well. And they were just able to beat a Cats team who we really rate without those two guys in the side. So some good signs there. Now, this is a big factor for me, Wally. The Dogs are coming off 3 6-day breaks in a row. So it's their 4th game in 18 days. So that is that cumulative effect that we've talked about before. Sides can handle 1 6-day break. But when you get 3 in a row, four games in 18 days, it does you're running the risk of having a flat one. And I think that's a chance to happen here. The other side to that is that the Crows are second up off their bye. And I've noticed in the past that teams often get a bit of a bump, especially second game back after their bye. Sometimes teams can struggle a little bit in that first game off their bye, but the second game off a bye is a bit of a sweet spot in terms of like energy levels and getting a bit of a bump in performance. So I feel like this gives the Crows a big edge in terms of their lead-up prep. Now, if I just looked at this without considering that and just looked on it from a form and a ratings point of view, even with the home ground advantage, I've got the Crows like 4 points ahead of the Dogs here, and then just to compare like a little form sample, like they both played the Hawks recently, and I know that the Doggies won, but they were -9 scoring shots. Now the Crows actually lost to the Hawks, but they did it with only having 4 less scoring shots. So that is an advantage to the Crows of like 5 scoring shots. So I'm quite keen on the Crows here, mate. I'm happy to want to back them, and you're getting a start too. You're getting a 3.5 point start at this point in time. So happy to be there. Now, as always, we look at key forwards against the Doggies, and you get Thilthorpe here. He's fresh. He's just had 2 weeks off. He was sort of battling a little bit, and I reckon he'll be probably really refreshed after a couple of weeks off there. And let's not forget that he did kick 6 against the Crows. Against the Doggies in this game last year at Marvel. So that's got to be something to have a look at. Some other player bets or whatnot that we could look at is like the Bond. His line's 25.5, and his last 4 against the Crows are 30, 26, 30, and 37. So doesn't mind playing the Crows. The Crows are often reluctant to put a tag on, so they do like to back themselves in. And also Ed Richards, mate, who looks like he's right back to form. We backed him on the weekend. He hit his line still just a 24.5. His last two against the Crows are a pair of 29. So happy with that. One guy I wanted to mention was Dan Curtin, who played superbly against the Cats. I feel like if he can maintain that kind of level, he could elevate the Crows to another level altogether. He was so good. And look, his lines, I think it's 17.5, coming off 26. He kind of plays wing drifting back, which is a good position to be against the Doggies too. And I'd be happy to play his line and perhaps look at something about him to get like your 25, because he did get 26 last year against the Dogs as well.
Yep, fantastic, Harro. Harro, just want to share with you something fascinating from the last 6 weeks. And the reason I did this, I'll talk about the last 3 because I also like to look at, okay, they're playing their 4th game in 18 days, but what are the other games? So the interestingly here, they obviously played a pretty tough game against Hawthorn, won by a kick. Before that, they won by 4 points against Collingwood in a tight one and 3 against Melbourne. So they have played really super competitive games in those times. But then I look back, the 3 games before that were all decided by 2 goals or less as well. So they've had 6 games in a row decided by 2 goals or less. And 4 of those one kick in under one kick. So, and they've won a lot of them. Like, this is almost the Collingwood of a few years ago. Remember Collingwood? It was something crazy like 10-1 under 10 points. But yeah, I found that interesting that they had the 3 tough games, and then they got the 4th one in 18 games. So there was no blowouts or bruise-free footy in there. So that adds a level to me. So for me, I'm liking that, Harro. All right. Let's move on. Geelong take on Gold Coast. We spoke about Gold Coast earlier. Don't know where they're at. The Cats are $1.27. Gold Coast $4.10. The Lions 24.5. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can have Gold Coast. I don't. I mean, surely Geelong just bounce back after their tough loss to the Crows.
Yeah, I mean, that would be probably the obvious way of thinking about it. But the Cats are $1.27, Wally. So it's absolutely, no bargain at all. And if you just line the 2 teams up on paper, it would be no shock if Gold Coast were able to win. So I'm not diving into that $1.27 at all. Just one area that I do kind of like here. I mentioned last week that the over total points is a good play in Cats games when it's not poor conditions. And obviously it was a little bit poor conditions in their game last week, so we're able to overlook that one. But I think that the theory remains. And if you take out the games that they've played in poor conditions or against like the heavy unders sides, they're basically all going over 180. So I'm happy to play the over 180 here. And Gold Coast, their games mainly lean into higher scoring also. Look, Dimmer was fuming in his press. I don't know if you saw it, Wally. He was fuming in that press conference. So he's had a bit of a loss about why they are playing the way they are. I wonder, you do get teams often coming, off the bye a little bit flat. They can put in, you do see the odd poor performance off the bye, and now they're second up off their bye. Could they get a big bump in performance, especially with, Dimmer's obviously got them pretty fired up. So we'll wait and see. But I'm not really tempted to back them. But I do think that there is a risk to backing Geelong. So the tag is for Geelong. It's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it, Wally? Because there's so many options for them. I know the last couple of times they've gone to Anderson, but Anderson, maybe his form isn't good enough to warrant a tag right now. And I know that the Lions tagged Rao to good effect. But at the moment, I still feel like we're guessing. Dangerfield, he went full mid last week, and that would have caught a few people off guard, I think. But look, I don't think that they'll continue with it. It's just a guess, but he only went at 56% kicking efficiency, and he had the 8 turnovers. So I'm not sure that it worked. I'd probably think that Danger might go back to his other role. One guy I like here, Wally, is Brian Myers, and we've got a really generous line for him against the Crows. And again, He's set to 21.5. He's coming off 25. And his last 3 games against the Suns are 28, 29, and 26. He's also 6 over and 3 under this line this season. So I think we've got a nice little play on Grian.
Very good, mate. Very good. Interestingly, saying with the Geelong Tigers there, like, because they've got multiple options and there are multiple options to go. And even if you don't go a hard tag, Atkins obviously runs with someone like this. It's going to be a tricky one. It'll be interesting to see which way you decide to go, but it feels like just trying to find other angles outside of that. I've also had a look at the radar or the forecast, I should say. Bit of rain in Melbourne and surrounds today, then like 1 mil Thursday, clear Friday by the looks of it. So conditions down at Geelong should be fine. So just obviously keep an eye out as we did around Adelaide Oval last week, Harro. All right. Next game, we move on to Saturday's fixtures. Melbourne v Essendon. Life doesn't get any easier for Essendon, even though they looked that bit better against Carlton and they really did put in some sort of effort. Melbourne's $1.19. Essendon's $5.10. The line's 30.5. Yeah, I mean, their one win of the season came against Melbourne at Gather Round. I think that was a blip on Melbourne's radar. They've been pretty bloody good apart from that. Stephen King's got them purring. They're in a top 6 spot at the moment. And Essendon are the spoon favourites.
Yeah, there's a couple of things, Wally, with this one. The D's here are off a 5-day break and a huge game. So there's a bit of a risk there that they could hit a flat spot in this one. So straight away, I'm ruling out a bet on the Demons and just saying that they're a bit of a risk. I wouldn't be going putting the D's to win in any multis or anything like that. They're just, you do see it so often, a huge build up, a big game, then a 5-day break. It could be, they could be, just as I said, a risk to hit a flat spot in this one. So, and also the Dons, they were much improved against the Blues, and it was the changes to the midfield, I think, that improved them with, Setterfield and Durham. Just a little bit more of a physical presence in there compared to your Merritts and your Parishes, these types of players who maybe don't put the pressure on as much as what those two guys do. And I thought that worked much better anyway. I do have a bit of a weather watch on this one, Wally. I think the forecast is, yesterday when I checked, it was 4 to 10 mil forecasted. So do just keep that in mind. And that's actually changed to 5 to 15 mil. So that also doesn't really suit the D's, giving a 30-point start. So if anything, I'd probably be leaning to the Dons with the bigger start there. And then obviously, keep an eye on the weather, but the under total points looks like it's probably going to come right into play. I'm not sure where that line's gone. 163.5. Yeah, I'd probably be willing to maybe have an early bet on that and see if the line drops. You might be able to reverse the other way if the rain doesn't end up hitting, or just stick with it and you've got yourself a nice bet if the rain does look like hitting. So potential way to go about that. But so it makes it hard also picking out player bets when you think it's going to be wet, because it just completely changes the game. But a couple of guys that I think it might suit regardless and who look like to have good roles is Will Setterfield, mate. He's coming off, I think, 29 on the weekend. I think he might have had 26 the week before as well. His line's 21.5, and he won't mind if it is wet. So happy to play that area. And also similar thinking around a Durham as well. So they're two guys who I think are on the up. A guy that may not be on the up and may not be suited to the conditions, and also the way that Solomon's setting the team up. And I think some punters got burnt on the weekend, and it was Roberts, Wally. And I think we had some questions come through about, how could you foresee this sort of thing happening? How could you foresee, Merritt going to halfback and killing all of Roberts' sort of easy play? And sometimes there's no warning to this sort of stuff, and you are just going to get caught out, by that sort of thing happening. But, I think I listened to their coach, and it's likely to continue. So whether you want to go under Roberts, I think his line's around 26, or if you want to just avoid putting him in any bets based on what we saw last week until we get a better grip of how they're going to continue to do this. That's probably the smart way to go about it, mate.
All right, very good, Harro. We move on now from that, and we'll go to the next Saturday game, which is North Melbourne, West Coast. We spoke about North Melbourne. $1.73, West Coast at $2.30, the line 6.5. They need a response, North Melbourne, after last week. They really do, Harro.
They do, mate. Just quickly, there's also showers forecast for this one. So keep an eye on that. It's obviously it dictates so much of how we want to bet in a game. We'll just double check because it's changed. The Melbourne forecast changed from when I looked at it, but let's check the Perth one again, just while we're here. Sorry, mate. Oh, don't worry. I've got lost here. I've lost my page. So, look, punters, have a look at the weather before you have a bet. But North just have to respond here, don't they? If you look at the whole season's body of form, then you'd probably be happy to back maybe North, expecting a big response. This is a game that I find really tricky. So maybe if you're going to have a game off for the round, this could be the one. That both sides are really stingy when they get their game up and going. And we've seen that West Coast have got their game going in the last 5 weeks, and they've been the 5th most restrictive team in the AFL. And if you just look at North's whole body of work, they're conceding the 17th most possessions in the AFL. So tricky game with the weather, tricky game with the form, and also, it's how can you back North when they're coming off a performance like that? But then they're probably the better side over the last, over this whole season. So it's very tricky, Wally. Now, I have found one bet that I kind of like in this one, and it shouldn't be affected by the weather, and it's Sherry. So I think he'd be well suited if it is a bit wet. And if it's not, he's also well suited because his last 3 games against West Coast, he's got 25, 22 and 30, and he's lined 20 here. And he's just a guy I really rate. He's going to be getting his hands dirty and trying to get his side over the line in this one, Wally.
Harry, just on that as well, and as I said, I should have said at the start, obviously this is their second game they've sold to WA, so it's not even Bunbury, is it? They play at Optus Stadium. They play at West Coast home ground.
I know.
Obviously got a lot of money for it. Now, the forecast here is Friday, Saturday, 0 to 1 mil, 0 to 2 mil sort of areas, but Sunday's 4 to 15 mil. So there is every chance we know that. The bomb's accuracy is probably similar to the arc and the umpiring, Harro. So when we know that, so there's every chance that 4 to 15 mil comes on Saturday instead of Sunday. So just keep an eye on that one.
Yeah.
As you rightly said, Harro. Right, next game we're going to look at is Port Adelaide v Sydney. Port $3.20, Sydney $1.40, the line 17.5. I find Port just one of the more difficult teams to work out. Some of their good footy's really good. They should have had a lot more wins than they did. They were 3 points away from Hawthorn. They gave Geelong a hiding. They've been good against good sides, Harro, but there's no consistency, and we sort of don't know where they're at. Swans got out of jail on the weekend. Amazing win. Good one for neutrals to watch and enjoy. Would have been just a nightmare watch if you're a Saints fan, but they're probably used to that over the years, unfortunately for them. But, yeah, mate, how do you see this?
Yeah, so I guess the first point that I like to make in Port games is that they've been the under kings all year. They're 12-1 on the under, and it's unbelievable. So I'm going to make a big call here, Wally. I'm going to say that the streak ends this week. And I can make a case for it. The line now is down to 165.5. So if you drew the line at 165.5 in all Port games, they're actually 5 over that and 7 under. So it's come back a fair way towards us. And I actually feel like they've chosen the wrong game to really drop the line here, because if you flip that around to Sydney, 11 of their 13 games are over this 165. One of them made up at 164, but it was with 23 goals, 26. The other one that went under was 21 goals, 30. So if you adjusted those two kind of outliers in terms of like accuracy, every game that the Swans have played has gone over this 165 and a half. And so I think that I'm going to take on the strongest trend so far this season in the
Oh,
AFL and back the overs in this game. And so yeah, the punters might be surprised to hear that, but you have to adjust when the bookies adjust, and they're clearly got sick of getting smashed in on the unders in port games, and I think that they've come too far and they've picked the wrong game to actually drop their line. And so I'm happy to take it on here, Wally.
right.
In terms of the line, I wish I had a little bit more confidence in Port because I think the Swans look really vulnerable here. If you just look at their form recently, they lost to the Cats, who went on to lose to the Blues and the Crows. They fell in against the Saints. They fell in against the Pies, both at home, and they're both sort of mid-table teams. And they've also got quite a few injuries piling up now, like Papley, McInerney, Goulden, McCartan. They've also got like Malacan, Rampy, Campbell, Adams, who would all be good replacements, all missing at the moment. And they've been up for a long time, haven't they? They haven't had their bye yet. And importantly, they're playing a team that's second up off their bye. So I would not be surprised if Port pulled off an upset here, Wally. I wish I had a bit more faith in them, but that's where I'm leaning in that one.
Harro,
Just
before you go on to player bets, can I
yep,
throw a suggestion then? If
go
we
on then.
think that this is the case, but you just don't have the confidence and you're like, I don't want to take the plus and go to the line, is this a game where you find even Port to win by a goal or something, you get the $3.50, $4, or even at the 310, 320 for the head to head, and you have a smaller bet that they actually complete the upset as opposed to going at them in the line? Would you consider that sort of bet?
Yeah, I don't mind that, Wally. Yeah, if you want to go about it that way, and I know said to the punters on the Discord on the weekend, like there was a bit of chat going on about the Dacos, potentially getting a tag by Langdon, and I had a similar strategy there. I was like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but if it does happen, both of them are going to go under their line, and so we're able to pick like a multi with both of them, which added up to like $4 or $5 for them both to go under. And you don't have to risk much on that. For something you're getting $5 about something that's like, you think's like a 50-50 thing to happen. And of course it didn't happen. They both went over their line, but you haven't lost a lot because you took that path, if you know what I mean. So you could do something similar here with Port. And that if they really show up properly and the Swans are a little bit off the Port, yeah, they could win. And so you maybe want to take the higher odds for a lower stake. I don't mind that idea.
Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yep.
You do feel like the Swannies are a bit vulnerable, and as good as they are, it might be a bit of a tough assignment. So interesting. It's obviously they're a much better side, but you got to pick your moments, don't you? So that's an
Mm.
interesting one. The players, Wally. The first sort of protocol, I guess, is looking at the matchups, and you think that James Jordan to Butters is probably a very obvious one for me.
Yep.
And you look at what happened last time these two teams met. Jordan played on Rosie in the first half, and Butters had 21 disposals. And then Jordan flipped from Rosie to Butters, and he kept him to 7 disposals in the second half. So I feel like that's looking like a pretty obvious matchup, and one that you think that maybe Jordan is capable of doing. There's also a midfield spot being left open by McInerney being injured, and so that does allow Jordan to come in there. And the other thing that happens is, and we've seen it the last 2 weeks when McInerney's gone out, that Warner has had a big bump in his disposals, and he's had 32 and 29 the last 2 weeks with McInerney going out injured in both of those games. And I think all the attention really has to go to Heaney, which leaves Jordan open. And for him to get over 22.5, I'm happy to look at that. Now, Another guy who I've noticed who's playing really well and he's got a bit of a new role is Joey Richards. So he's gone into the midfield the last 2 weeks and he's had 24 and 18. And his line is 17.5 here. So I think that's something that they're going to continue with. And he's got to be a good chance to pass that line too. One other little area, Wally, and it was called out by a couple of punters in the Discord on the weekend. It was Burn Jones getting a bit of a bump in disposals with Farrell being out of the team. And he and Burgoyne actually got a good bump in their disposals. They both ended up with 24, well over their rate. So if Farrell doesn't come back, I know Burn Jones's line's, I think, 19.5. I'd be happy to play the over there, but probably want to wait for the teams to come out. And mate, looking forward to this one on Saturday night. Should be a good one.
Oh, very good. So would you play Burgoyne as well or just Darcy Byrne-Jones?
Well, I think Burn Jones, his line's just a few lower.
Okay,
so it's,
right.
Yeah, but I think the punters, they can consider both, and that's the idea. Sort of, put the idea out there and let the punters make their choices.
Right. Very good, Harro. All right, we move on to Sunday's games, and Richmond host Brisbane. Life looking a lot better for Brisbane after their Q Clash win, and Logan Morris, what a game from him. Richmond are $8.50, Brisbane $1.08. The line's 45.5, Harro.
Yeah, I do find it very hard to trust Brisbane when they play the bottom sides. So often they just do enough to cover the line. To win, but they don't always press on and want to cover the line. So, yeah, I think that if they wanted to and if they were really switched on, yes, they would. And they would smash the Tigers here. But with the Tigers having so many players out as well, it's I kind of want to back the Lions. I just have that little doubt about them not putting bottom sides away. So, 50-50 there, Wally. But the total points I like here. So the Lions, they lend heavily to the overs. The Tigers, they've gone back and forward. They were like a really low sort of scoring side. But this sort of season, like the 6 of the Tigers' last 8 games are actually over 180. And if you look at this matchup trends really high. So the last sort of 6 games between these two sides, they're made up at 208, 207, 187, 210, 201 points. So very high this matchup. And also the Lions' last 8 games in a row are also over the 180. So good conditions down in Hobart. So often you get good conditions down there. It's everybody gives it a bad rap for their weather, but sort of every time there's a football game on down there, it's like perfect weather. So I think that lanes well. Will Ashcroft is an interesting one, Wally. He's been going a little bit low lately. But with no McCluggage there, I think the role's still there for him. He gets a really good matchup here, and his line's now down at 24.5, which is historically low for him. So I'm happy to back Will Ashcroft to get the 25. I'd maybe even have a look at him to get the 30 because he's got a good history of doing that, and you're going to get a good price. The other one here is Josh Dunkley with a line of 20.5. He's unlikely to have an opponent that he's going to be wanting to put a tag on or a lot of pressure on. So he may be able to hunt the footy a little bit more. His line's only 20.5, and he got 30 against the Tigers last time they played. So also a good matchup for him. Ty Gallop, I wanted to mention, returned to the forward line last week, and he had 3 shots on goal. He's obviously going to get a pretty good matchup here. Should get plenty of supply. And he's $2.90 to kick 2. And let's not forget, he's a guy who kicked 3 in a prelim. He's got plenty of ability. So, that might be something for the punters to consider as well, mate.
Very good, Harro. Now we wrap up the round with St Kilda v GWS. The Saints, as I said, they were stiff on the weekend, but they played great footy for a lot of that match against Sydney. They're $1.80, GWS $2.08. The line's 3.5.
Yeah, really interesting game this, isn't it? I don't know what we're going to get with the Giants off their bye. I felt like they were really improving before the bye. I've just got these two teams pegged so evenly. I don't know where to go with it, Wally. So I'm not going to have a bet basically on who's going to win. I am going to be watching it with interest, so because I think it's going to be a bit of a belter of a game, this one. And it's not a bet that I normally have either, but you could look at like either team under 24 points. I think it'll be a close one. Giants games are tending quite high scoring, and as we saw in the St Kilda Swans game, Saints games can go that way as well if the opposition want to push it that way. And so I'd, good conditions at Marvel, I'd consider the over 183.5. The Saints are like the lowest conceding just about team to midfielders in the comp. And so just looking at a couple of players here, these actually weren't out yesterday when I had a look, but your Oliver at 30.5, your Finn Callahan at 27.5, they're the types of guys that they're restricting as well. So you could look under that. On the flip side, they tend to give up a lot to defenders. And like Lockie Whitfield to get his 30, he's been getting a bit of attention lately. So he's probably a good one to look into here, Wally. On the Saints side of things, Max Hall, he's just going from strength to strength, isn't he? He's really dominating at the moment. And him at 23.5, I think he's been over that very consistently since he went into that role. So he's a guy I'd be happy to play here. Apart from that, mate, this is going to be a good one to finish the round with, and I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully, we can. It should be like a high disposal game. It's just picking the areas and like maybe avoiding the GWS mids, looking at their backs. Another player here that actually has a really good role for playing against the Saints is Jaden Laverde, and you can back him to get 17 disposals. He's done that 3 of his last 4 games. And he gets the matchup here, against the Saints, who do allow you to chip the ball around amongst the defenders. So he's also a guy I'm pretty keen to back, mate.
Mate, I'll tell you what, for a game that we look at and you go, okay, well, there's not a lot you can choose between. This is why I love punting, Harro. Like, who knows? This is the toss of a coin. This is the toss of the coin. You might want to play the overs. You can leave both of those. There's so many angles here to play. So, love it. All right, mate. Best bet of the round. Where are we going?
Mate, we're going to go on Thursday night here, and we're going to back the Crows, getting a 3.5 point start. 4.5 point start. It's updated to now. Crows getting a 4.5 point start against the Doggies, mate.
There you go. All right. That's it from us for another week. Harry, been great as always. Just another reminder, if you haven't joined the Discord, come and check it out. The link is on X. The link is in the bio on Instagram. Plenty of places you can find it. If you're not following us or subscribing to us on YouTube, make sure you're doing that. Share it with your friends. Hopefully you're getting plenty out of this. We love our community. We love talking to you each week. Harro, have a great weekend, mate, and we'll see you next week.
All the best, boys.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.